Sometime in the past year, someone came up here with what we think was a Dremel tool and ground their name in to the sandstone in frame arch. It says Anderson. It's a pretty big scar of graffiti on a place that people come to enjoy the natural beauty of the park. We are hoping to do something to disguise it and help disguise it from visitors' view. So we're testing a number of different materials. All of them are natural soils and rocks that come from this area of the park, so that hopefully we get a good color and texture match to the natural sandstone. So we are going around and finding soil that's already broken loose from the natural geology and rocks that are already broken loose, and we crush them up and then sieve them so that we have grains of a certain size, and we mix that with an acrylic binder. That's actually a stucco additive, but it's got some plasticity to it, and then we use that in different concentrations depending on how hard we want the material to be. So grinders can be really damaging to the rock. Obviously what you're doing is you're removing a large portion of natural substrate. So especially if you have graffiti that's, like this, which is about 1 centimeter deep, that's a whole centimeter of surface that you're removing from this natural arch, which is why the park is here. I mean, it's Arches National Park, and you're basically modifying it mechanically when you grind it away. So this is a way to sort of remove it in a way that's reversible, so that you're not actually taking anything away from the arch, you're just adding to it in a way that if you decide in the future you want to undo, you can take it out without any damage to the naturally occurring structure.
We're out here outside of Moab to do 3 days of canyons. I'm Erin, I'm from the National Park Service, and I'm here with my colleague Matt. He's from the Bureau of Land Management. We're going to talk about using minimum impact practices for Leave No Trace.
On the way.
And how we can do these canyons safely and have a lot of fun while doing it.
I think one of the biggest issues that can get a group into an emergency situation is just being ill prepared. If we're planning for a canyoneering trip, obviously you're looking out for your own safety, so a good thing to have would be a first aid kit. Obviously plenty of food and water for the duration of the trip that you're going to be going on. Also the required gear, so knowing how many rappels you're going to be doing and how long those rappels are to have proper lengths of rope.
All right, team, so we're over here. This is going to be the canyon we're going down.
So just having the navigational skills, knowing the group and the group members' abilities prior to going on that canyoneering adventure.
Awesome. Weather, let's talk about weather. Who's looked up weather recently?
I checked it this morning, looks good, clear all day long. There's no threat of thunderstorms, so we should be good to go.
Awesome. Also, we've got the other safety stuff, because you never know, even if it's a day trip, that it could become an overnight. So I've got all, a little bivy sack, extra food, extra water, a headlamp. Always bring a headlamp and extra batteries, because it can happen to anybody. But yeah, you do this all before you even leave your vehicles. And then if you need to go run and grab something, you're there to do it.
Sometimes half of the trip for canyoneering is just getting to that canyon. And sometimes you'll have a clear marked trail. A lot of times they're off in the middle of nowhere. Okay, so it looks like we're trying to get to that little sandstone dome out there. Looks like a pretty sensitive spot down here. There's some biological soil crust and some other vegetation that we're going to want to avoid. So let's stay in this wash down here that's pretty used, and we won't be crushing anything with our feet. And then as soon as we can, we'll get up on that sandstone bench and be on a hard surface. While you're approaching some of these canyons, you want to be avoiding biological soil crusts, which are actually living soil, and it tends to be a little darker, and it almost looks like this castle if you look really closely. But the soil is alive, and you want to be avoiding that as much as you can, stepping on hard and durable surfaces, staying in wash bottoms, and leaving that be, because that actually retains moisture and helps all the other vegetation grow.
Group size is a huge factor in the impact that we have on these canyons. You don't want to have a group of, like 15, 20 people going through a canyon. It's not safe, and it causes a lot of damage.
We're about to do the first rappel. We're getting all geared up. We're about to do a little safety check, make sure everybody's cinched in their harnesses and ready to go.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, a good group size would be anywhere from 3 to 6 people.
Rope!
Moving fairly fast, but you have plenty of people to help you work out these different scenarios. And a lot of different people have different backgrounds, so maybe someone's a great climber and can get through a little slabby climb section better than someone else.
All right, go ahead and drop it.
And other people have more experience on ropes descending them. So this is a little technical bouldery section right here behind me in this canyon. What we're gonna do is just be as safe as we can. Might take our packs off, hand them up, and do some partner assists through it too.
Thank you. And that's part of the fun of it, is like coming together with everybody's toolbox of skills and figuring out the best way to get through the obstacle ahead of you.
And when you get back there where the crack tightens up, you'll see there's a slab move. And you have to just like commit to that to step across and then scramble up to this ledge.
How was it?
Oh, that was awesome. Lots of full body experience there.
So this is our next anchor for rappelling off of down here. Getting down to it's pretty exposed. So we're just gonna send one person down
Okay, I'm gonna weight you.
to keep that person safe.
Yeah, if something goes wrong in a canyon, I mean, especially if there's an injured person, that becomes a priority. And so search and rescue teams need to come in any means possible. And a lot of times that causes a lot of impact to the canyons. Totally unintentional, but that's not the priority anymore when you have somebody's safety.
Oh, there's some rope grooves here. This is some of the most insane rope grooves I've seen in a canyon. This boulder has seen a lot of abuse, people pulling their ropes from around it and just sawing right through this soft sandstone. And if you can see, it's every which way.
Rope.
Often too, the rope grooving can be a safety issue. You can end up getting these big like combs kind of in the sandstone where your rope will get stuck, or whatever you're using to block your rappel line will get stuck. There are ways to mitigate it, and it should be on us to leave no trace, right? We don't want to leave that impact that we were there.
All right, so we got our anchor set up back here, but I'm noticing that it's also gonna be rubbing on this edge here. And as we go over the edge, there's gonna be a little bit of back and forth, which is gonna actually cause rope grooves just from us rappelling. So common practice, real easy thing to do. Take a rope bag, backpack. In this case, I have a pot shot. Just take that and pad that rub point. And then as people are going down on rappel, you watch it, kind of mind it because it'll move a little bit. And if you need to move it and adjust it to another wear point, you can do that. Or, there might be another wear point and you add more padding where you need it.
One way to prevent rope grooves is by extending the webbing from your anchor over the edge of a drop. This takes care of the wear point, and it can also make the pull a lot easier.
So I stepped back pretty far because I want to be able to see where this rope is coming out of the anchor. If you look directly below that R.O.V.E.R.S, you can see where the rope grooves have started, and that's from people pulling the rope directly below. So this technique, very simple, very easy to do, and it mitigates that rope grooving. He's also holding it up so that that other end is also not dragging on the rock. Rope.
So when you're evaluating an anchor, the couple things to look at would be, one, the color, if it's been incredibly faded. You're also just looking for any tears, gouges in the webbing, anything that looks like it's weakening that anchor. We like to use natural colored webbing. Primarily, a good one is black, even though it's not the same color as the sandstone. It does seem to blend in fairly well. What we try and steer away from is any bright colors. And that's a good low impact technique to use. So we also try and limit the number of pieces of webbing. You'll come upon anchors that have ages of webbing from years ago or something. That's just a visual eyesore. So it's good to remove the ones that are either faded and not being used or torn completely, and just get it out of there and keep it as low impact as possible. We're trying to leave no trace, and if we have to build an anchor, we're going to be leaving that behind, but as minimal as we can is best.
So we were walking along the edge of the canyon here on the approach, and we found this anchor. This is super bright colored and kind of an eyesore in this wilderness area. So we're going to go ahead and remove it. It's unsafe and it's unsightly. So I'm just going to untie it and carry it out in my pack like trash. Keep that for later.
This is a good example of a rappel station that has some decent rope grooving going on right here when people are pulling the rope from below, and it's just dragging right on this rock right here. It's pretty obvious. And also there's two options for a rappel here. This one kind of drops you onto the sand down below and looks kind of sensitive. There's some biological soil crust. You have to find your way through the rocks and vegetation, where the other option, you're just on slick rock the whole way, and it's a much better option than make another shortcut trail potentially.
The other thing to consider is time of year. When is an appropriate time of year to do this canyon? Is it going to be too hot?
Not touching.
Is it going to be too cold, or is there water in this canyon? Do I have appropriate thermal protection for it? Save those canyoneering trips for the appropriate time. Make sure you don't have any inclement weather in the forecast, and always have a backup plan. Nobody's making you go do this canyon. And if you get surprised by inclement weather, you should have something else you guys can do.
Off.
Yeah, you can just imagine how much water was flowing through here that left this much debris at one point, and now that could have been a small flash flood for this canyon, but it's left 3-4 feet of debris up on this cottonwood here. It can be pretty dangerous if you're in the canyon while something like that happens too. So that's why it's important to plan ahead, look at the weather forecast, and know what you're getting into ahead of time.
Sometimes you'll see some wildlife in the canyons, on approaches as well. The wildlife I've seen most in canyons are actually owls, rodents. Respecting that they live there is key, not disturbing them, staying an appropriate distance. There are some places where there's raptor nesting, and a lot of places end up closing access because of the raptor nesting. So if your itinerary plans on going through those places, you really need to know that information and know when you shouldn't be there. And that's part of Leave No Trace too. You don't want to leave your trash in the canyon for wildlife to get to, because they will. So keeping your stuff all cinched up and together and carrying it out with you is super important.
Shoulder.
Woo, okay, waist deep.
So recently in this area, we've unfortunately seen an increase in graffiti while in some of these canyoneering routes. Graffiti is vandalism, it's illegal, nobody wants to see it. This day and age, we don't need to be seeing people's names or hearts or hashtags or anything like that. Sometimes it gets out of hand and we have to have professional archaeologists come in and remove them, and that's timely and costly to do that. So in canyoneering specifically, human waste can be an issue, and leaving it behind, that's going to be very obvious very quickly. So we need to be packing that out, whether it's a wag bag or a hard-sided container that you're carrying out in your backpack. So you're not lifting up a rock and seeing toilet paper or seeing human waste out in the open. A lot of areas on public lands are just getting so overused, specifically in this area outside of Moab. You're camping on top of one another, essentially. Important as us as a user group to be camping in a respectful and responsible manner, and that includes abiding by leave no trace principles. Out here in Utah and on the Colorado Plateau, you don't want to be driving over vegetation, creating a new camping spot. And when you do break down camp, leaving it the same way you found it, if not better.
With social media and the internet and being able to share data, our responsibility goes beyond when we're actually in the canyons and afterwards when we're sharing pictures and talking about the fun time we had. I like to think of it as an opportunity for us to set an example. We are preserving these places for future generations. We want to make sure that groups can continue to access these places, and the more successful we are in our leave no trace principles, the greater the chances we'll keep our access.